Hi guys, it's Ray. I am going to do a couple of beach coasters real quick, hopefully. I already painted one set, so this set is ready for epoxy. So I'm just going to move those four out of the way for a minute. I already mixed some resin, so I'm hoping I can get this done before that resin starts to harden. I am going to take a couple of medicine cups quick and break the resin down a little bit so there's not as much in the container. Okay. Excuse me, I'm a little dry and I don't have a drink right here. I'm gonna run and grab that real quick. It's just right here. I just did a basic tutorial chat while I was waiting for the first set of coasters to dry. So these are simply, they're like 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 tiles from Home Depot. I bought a box of 100 for like 16 bucks, so they're like 16 cents each. Oh, let me grab a finished one to show you. And these ones are alcohol inks. These both happen to have a little bit of glitter in the epoxy layer. I did these ones the other day. They're just a ceramic tile. I have to clean up the bottom a little bit, but once I'm done, I will adhere a 4x4 piece of cork to the bottom to protect the surfaces so you don't have a tile scratching your surface. Amazon does have cork squares pre-cut. I happen to have a roll of cork laying around, so I cut that down myself. And I have also done coasters in the past where I used felt squares for the bottom. Either way will work. So, I normally, when I do my beach things, don't show any of the paint process. So, the goal here is to show a little bit of the paint process. I have 3 very sad looking chippy brushes. I only used 2 for my last 4. I'm going to use 3 brushes this time. These chippy brushes have been around the ringer. They've had haircuts a couple of times, some of them. They're dirt cheap, but I like to use them till they're completely trash. I have 6 colors of sea paint. I have Sand Dollar, Shady Beach, Mermaid Mist, Ocean Sky, that would actually be my lightest color, Anchored, and Navy Sailor. You guys have probably seen me use up to 6 shades of the blue on a beach scene before. I'm just going to go with 4 this time because they're smaller. I just have a simple little piece of wax paper here that I'm going to pour just a tiny bit of each color on. And then I'm going to go ahead and get to painting. So, once I have them all laid out, I will get started. And it should only take a couple of seconds. I am not a fancy painter when it comes to doing the beach scenes. Quick and just slap it on, because it is going to get covered and embellished when I get to the resin coat. So any oopsies will pretty much be covered. You can get fancy, you can make a fancy swirly beach scene. I'm just not. So, I don't prep the tiles at all. These are brand new out of the box. If they'd been kicking around for a while, I would probably wipe them down with some alcohol. But, again, they're brand new out of the box. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing with the brush, but I'm going to dip half of the lighter color and half of the darker color. And I am just going to quick brush it on. make sure you get your sides, because the edges of these will be visible when the product is finished. Oops, sorry about that. But that is all there is to this part of it. You can mix your colors, you can blend and swirl, you can make them darker or lighter. Any color you want. If you feel that one got too light, you can dip back in and brush. This set might be a little darker than the first set overall, and that's perfectly fine. Sorry about the fire pager in the background. I forgot to turn it down before I started. I also left all the fans running and the ACs running, so you might be hearing this. So, when you use chip brushes, just be aware that sometimes they do shed. And you might get a little piece stuck. You want to pay attention to that a little bit, just so if you need to pick any bits off, you can. I'm just going to dump a little bit more of the darker color, the Shady Beach, and go back over these a little bit. Okay, so that is it for my browns. I'll put that brush aside. I used the same brush for all 4 of my blues last time, but this time I'm going to use 2 brushes. I typically start with my darkest color and work my way down. So in this case, that's going to be the Navy Sailor. So, but I don't do one color or one piece at a time when I'm doing multiple pieces. I work my way through the entire piece. And I'm picking up the next color and blending it in. It's okay if it overlaps some. That's kind of what you want. And I should have left the new brush for the lighter colors, but I didn't, so they might pick up more of the dark than otherwise, but it's alright. And again, make sure you're getting your edges, because I almost forgot, and I don't know if you can see that, but I would have had a white spot down the side of my coaster. Because the epoxy isn't going to have any color other than a little bit of white. That would have been not pretty. So, back to my dark. My next, again, nothing fancy, I'm just getting color on there. I'm not a freehand painter. I stencil quite a bit, but it's very, very rare to see me paint something freehand, because I am simply not great at it. edges. I'm just going to keep going and work backwards since this brush is still in my hands. Just because I normally do something doesn't mean I have to always do it that way. I may grab, before I resin these, a clean brush to add some more of the lightest blue in, but just because I feel like I've lost a lot of it. But I might not. Am I completely out of the frame? Probably. I'm not working in my normal craft space where I typically tend to actually stand while I work and I can see the top of the camera. I'm actually sitting down here and can't see a thing. So the last one, and then I will swap these out and hope my resin hasn't hardened on me while I've been painting. It's okay if it has a little bit of a textured look. That's not going to hurt anything. Just critical with something like this where the edges are going to be exposed in the final product, to make sure you cover those. That's really the key. So there you have it. Quick 4 beachy tile coasters. I'm going to move all of this out of the way to deal with later. I am going to slide this tray in and scoot this tray out. So I do not have here my heat gun. I only have a torch. So that could be a little bit interesting, but we'll see. I am going to put each of these ones are dry. I did them maybe an hour ago, if that. They don't really take long to dry. I wasn't sure how long they'd take on tile, but they actually dried faster than I expected them to, for the fact that it's fairly cool in here because of the AC and the fans. So each of them is going to go up, or at least have a stand ready for them to go up. I'm going to move 3 of them out of the way for just a minute. Okay, so all I'm going to do first is, this is just plain old clear epoxy. It's now been sitting for as long as it took me to paint those other ones, and it is pretty darn bubble free. So I'm going to remove this popsicle stick, and there's about 40 milliliters of resin in here right now. I'm going to use about 10 per to coat. So I'm just going to hold the coaster flat in my hand. These may require another coat tomorrow. Sometimes the coasters coat really nicely in one, and sometimes they'll repel a little bit here and there depending on the finish. So if you feel you need more on the edges, just dip your finger in. I'm not really worried about totally neat and smooth right now because these are going to get hit with the heat gun. So I'm just trying to get them coated. So there's one. I am actually going to, as I finish this step, put them facing away from me for the next step. Because working 4 at a time, it'll be a little harder for me to work around them all. And I do see a little spot on the edge of this one I missed with the paint, but it's just a little bit, so I'm not really going to worry about that. I'm not going to try and fill it in once I've already started the resin process. That's my own fault for not checking before I got going. So, around and around and around. Typically, I would say if you had extra epoxy, have a mold ready to fill. I don't really have a mold ready to fill in front of me, so I may actually end up losing a tiny bit of epoxy on this project, but that's alright. It's only going to be a tiny bit. It's not the end of the world. So I'm almost thinking about doing 2 facing me and 2 facing away, just to have the waves go different directions, just to show you what I mean. But I am trying to work quickly, so I'm sorry if I'm in and out of the frame. I just don't want this resin to harden up on me too fast. Again, it has been sitting a while, and I'm not worried about the bottom side of these coasters. I know I'm getting resin all over them. I can clean up the edges enough once they're cured to get them flat for that cork to go on. So I'm not worried about how I'm handling these. It doesn't need to be a clean bottom. I'm just going to put a little bit extra because I don't really want to waste it. Alright, that cup's basically empty. So, once I'm done with this is when I'm going to mix some white into a batch. And because I am not working on a fully protected surface, I am going to go ahead and swap my gloves out. Because I don't want to be handling my resin dyes and stuff with these gloves. I would normally have actually put a vinyl glove over the nitrile glove and then just stripped the vinyl off, but I didn't have any vinyl gloves handy, and I did just get a little bit of resin on my hand, so I'm going to take a baby wipe and get that cleaned off as quick as possible. When I'm done, I will wash my hands. But I do want to get moving on to the next step because I don't want this to fully harden. So what I'm going to do is, out of that 80 milliliters, I put some in medicine cups over here as a reserve. I'm going to use the Allumilite white opaque dye. I wish I'd left myself a little more room here. That's fine. So I'm going to, and I didn't pay attention to how many I put in this cup, and I actually cannot read it right now, but it's a little over half of a measuring cup. I'm just gonna squirt a little bit in. This isn't like if you did this with acrylic paint where you'd get yourself in trouble if you used too much. I also have, this is my refill bottle of Pinata white alcohol ink, and I'm going to add just a couple drops of that as well. And I'm gonna grab a little, actually, I don't want to use a popsicle stick. I'm gonna use one of these like cuticle stick type deals because I want a little bit more control when I use it. I'm just gonna start with this. I still have a small cup on reserve, but this is more than enough for white. So, for this small of a project. You can, if you want, and if you think you can remember where, you can do like a line, and a line, and a line. But because I'm working so quick, it's not really necessary, and honestly, I never remember where I added the extra epoxy half of the time. But these ones I'm gonna do 3 lines on each. And what I mean by that is my white mix, I'm gonna start off the edge and go over with a thin line. I can always go back in with more, but I can't take it away once I start without losing the resin that's on there. So less is more in the beginning. And I try not to start all on the same side because I usually have more on the starting edge. So but I'm just putting some stripes of white to start, and I really should have my heat gun to be able to blow this, but I'm simply going to use the torch and hope that it works as well. Now when I say you shouldn't start on the same side, this is why. You can see how much more I ended up with on this side because I started them all on the same edge. So do as I say, not as I do. I'm going to set that out of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and grab a torch, and hopefully you're in frame enough. With the torch, you're going to want to move quick. You can push the resin a little bit with the torch, but not as much as you could with the heat gun. So hopefully this works and I don't set one of these pieces on fire because it can happen. I'm just trying to move it a little bit with quick blast. This torch might be set a little bit high. I think this torch was last used actually to start our pellet stove. So actually that might have been its lowest setting. But the idea with the torch is it and that's okay that it's doing that. I'm not actually that worried. Don't mind the flames and the smoke. But you can see the cells and the lacing I'm getting by torching it. Torches are great when it comes to resin and sort of necessary, but they can be a little bit intimidating. But that's it. I'm done. Maybe a little bit more right there. But you can see how you get a different effect from the one that was one direction versus the other. I'll pick this one up and spin it around. One I pushed down towards the beach and one I sort of pushed away. But that's it. That's my set of 4 beach coasters. You can, if you want more waves, I wish I hadn't taken that glove off already, but I want to get this one a little closer. If you can see the beautiful lacing on this one, especially, that's what you're going for with the torch. And you don't always necessarily get that with the heat gun, which is why I prefer a torch for that part, even though it's a little bit scarier. But that's it. Oh, as I was saying, if you need to, or you want more waves, like say you'd only done 2 stripes because you didn't think 3 was going to work, when this is dry, you can go back in and do another layer of the clear and then just the white. But if I feel like they need it, or there's any spots that aren't covered, these will get a second coat of resin tomorrow. But if they're completely covered, then they'll get their cork backing on and they'll be done. So that's it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye.